All right. Great. Should I go ahead and get started then?
Okay, we're set.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, you go right ahead, Pastor
All right. Well,
Juan.
thank you, everyone. We're just excited about this monthly gathering that we are going to just be able to touch base with one another and really hear from, hopefully, just a great, diverse group of people from locally to around the world as they um, give us a little insight, a little encouragement to press in to stand with Israel. Um, as we all know, God is changing the seasons again and times with Israel. And I think this is such a perfect time to really start these monthly gatherings. Um, one, for the sake of knowing how to pray better for Israel and what it looks like to stand with her. But I do believe even more so that Israel is going to come to the forefront for anyone who is a follower of Yeshua. And it is important, even as we start off this, um, to get into the rhythm, I think, of praying for Israel, of standing with Israel, of having a avenue for people who want to support Israel to come together, regardless of location and background, to pray to our common Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. So I'm so excited. I'm thankful for Janice and thankful for TJC2 for their long history of faithfulness with the Lord. And we're just honored, even just as my ministry and house of prayer, as we step into this more, just to be able to join you guys. And I do believe that over the course of this year, we'll see more and more people just, wondering how to stand with Israel, popping into these meetings and so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the Lord is going to do with this group. So, well, we're going to kick off our short gathering by singing a song together. And so let me go ahead and hand over the time to Janice as she leads us in a song. I will also put the lyrics for the song up as well. So.
Amen. Praise Adonai. Thank you so much, Pastor Juan. And we're going to just embrace the song that talks about how good it is, how good and pleasant it is for Messiah followers, my words, to dwell together and join together. This song is called Hine Matov. Hine Matov Umanaim Shavatakim Gayakar. Hine Matov Umanaim Shavatakim Gayakar. Hine Matov, Hine Matov. La 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 la. Hine matov, hine matov. La 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 la. It's like a precious oil flowing down the beard of Aaron. From the top of his head to the beard of to the top of his head, to the edge of his robe, hine matov, hine matov umanahim, shevet hakim gam yakad, hine matov umanahim, shevet hakim gam yakad, hine matov, hine matov. La 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 la. Hine matov, hine matov. La 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 la. Hine matov, hine matov. La 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 la. It's like the dew of Hermon descending upon the mountain of Zion, Zion. For there the Lord commanded blessing and life forevermore. Hine ma tovu manahim, shevet akim gam yakad. Hine ma tovu manahim, shevet akim gam yakad. Hine ma tov, la 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 la. Hine ma tov, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Hine ma tov. How good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together. Amen.
Amen. I know I've actually heard this song before. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And I'll actually put the song's lyrics up as well for people who, on that site as well. So people can get used to, if they've heard a song before, that they can know how to grab it. Well, if we could actually do a prayer as well after this song. Yichin, do you mind praying for us as we open up today?
Okay.
Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time we gather us together to strengthen each other, to hear your words, to praise you, and also to hear the testimony of you. We humbly present the following time in front of you, and we ask you to set it apart just for you. And also, we thank you for the prayer, for the word you give us to keep setting us apart. The prayer is in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So as we, before we go into the speaker for today, just a couple, ideas on how to engage. As we have different speakers each month, it's going to be great. I'm excited to hear people from Israel, from different parts of the U.S. come and share a little bit. Feel free, and I encourage you guys, if you have questions, to write those questions in the comment section in the chat box. Or if you just have comments, like you agree or want to add to, just feel free to throw those in the comment box. You can also, in the comment box, throw any prayer requests. So basically 3 things: questions, comments, and prayer requests. And that'll just be a way for, while the speaker is speaking, for us to engage with the speaker. And so after the speaker speaks, we'll have a time of questions or comments from anybody in the chat room to amen or to clarify anything as well. And then we're going to end with prayer for Israel. Now, Janice, did you have any, before we start going into the speaker, did you have any updates about TJCll that you wanted to announce or throw in there?
Sure. Thank you, Pastor Juan. Yes, we'd like to just encourage you all to continue to join us as Pastor Juan has spoken. But 2 updates. One, we have a very special opportunity. TJCll will be at Pastor Priscilla Juan's church, Faith, Hope, Love House of Prayer. We have a worship leader coming from Israel, Carol Hyde, will be coming from Israel, and she will be blessing us in worship and prayer and just exhorting the ecclesia here in Columbus, Ohio. So we will keep you posted on that. That will be a great time of worship and having her here in the land. An interesting thing she shared with me was that Adonai had spoken to her during a time of prayer, and that during that time he spoke to her, I want you to go to Columbus. She will be traveling more in the southern states, but I want you to go to Columbus, Ohio, to bless her and to bring healing. And so we are excited about that. That's one thing. And then secondly, our next gathering is July 12th. And looking forward to having Jason Silverman, who is Rabbi Howard Silverman's son, to share with us. And so keep that in prayer for us. Thank you, Pastor Juan.
Great, thank you so much. And so I'm going to turn this time over to our first guest speaker for these gatherings. How exciting. Thank you for taking the first round here. Marcy, I believe, I don't know, how many years have you been at Beth Messiah?
Since 1977, essentially. So it's been a long time.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I went to their synagogue and just was met with incredible hospitality from their group. And just seeing Marcy there, she's also a worship leader, I believe, and has done a lot of work with Beth Messiah and just really studied a lot about Hebrew and just working with Jewish believers. So let me give over the time to you, Marcy. And remember, again, if you have questions or comments, please throw it in the chat as she's speaking. Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you so much, Pastor Juan. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you to Janice Stewart for inviting me to be your first speaker. This is quite a special time for me as well. I want to share with you my journey because I think it will help you to understand a little bit better what it's like to be effective in reaching Jewish people. Now, having said that, I think I'm somewhat typical, but every person's story is different. And so what worked for me, this is not a formula. This is not, a sequence that if you do A, B, and C, you will get the result you're looking for. But the opportunity to just share this story is something I get blessed every time I think about it because God was in charge of my life. Do I have the opportunity or ability to share share a screen? I've got a picture I wanted to put up.
Yep, I think I just gave you co-host rights.
Oh, good. Let's see if that works. It looks like it will. Here is one of my favorite pictures from growing up. So I hope you're seeing that. So at the top left is my Uncle Sidney, who was my godfather. In the center is my mother, who I think I look like. Next to her is my Uncle Harold. These are 3 out of 4 siblings. Their oldest sister, Ruth, is not in the picture. And then there I am in all my glory at about 6 years old, I think, in an outfit that was purchased to go to a bar mitzvah. I hated that outfit at the time. I would kill to have something like it now. And my then baby brother, Jeff. He's still one of my favorite people, but yay. So I just wanted to give you a picture of what it was like, because this was kind of a typical early 1960s American Jewish family. So I think a lot of my background is in some ways very typical. Jewish people in the post-war era were here in this country just trying to blend in, trying to get that American dream, succeed, not suffer the prejudice that had so pervaded Europe in the preceding decades and centuries even. So there we were, this very normal looking family. And I don't remember a time where I didn't. Thank you, Priscilla. It is a cute picture. I like it. I have it in my dining room as well. I don't remember a time where I didn't believe in God, but I was raised in a very non-religious home. And when I say religious, what I mean is non-observant. Religion is not a really good term to use, but so be it. We did not keep kosher. We did not observe the Sabbath. We seldom went to the synagogue. We very rarely did anything other than the basic things that would be typical for normative Jewish life. So we observed Passover, we celebrated Hanukkah, we did those kinds of things, but it wasn't out of a perspective of faith. It was, this is just what Jewish people do, and we eat, lox and bagels on Sunday morning, and chopped liver was one of the go-to kinds of items that we would have, but we didn't keep kosher, so we might also have shrimp cocktail and honey baked ham. Seemed normal to me. Even my kosher keeping grandmother would eat whatever we put in front of her at our house. She would never have it at her own. So this was kind of the way I was raised. My mother wanted very much for my brother and sorry for the grammar, my brother and me to have a strong sense of our Jewish identity. For her, that was the important thing, not the religious expression. So going to synagogue wasn't one of the top priorities for her. And my father was very assimilated, even so, and I don't think he liked the idea of being Jewish, but that's another story. So I went to Sunday school as a child and then to Hebrew school as I got older. I went through 6th grade. It was not a very positive experience for me because girls at that time were not validated. So I would have loved to have been able to participate in our junior congregation worship, but girls were not allowed to do any Hebrew parts. The synagogue that we were attending at that time for Hebrew school did not believe in bat mitzvah, and so I felt marginalized, and I quit going after 6th grade because there was nothing left for me to look forward to. My mother allowed that. She wasn't happy, but it was okay. I grew up in an area that was very diverse in some ways, and well, I guess mostly Italian Catholic, strong number of Lutherans, Methodists, Baptists. To me, it was all the same. If you were Gentile, you might as well all be Catholic, because I didn't know the difference. And I went to public schools because my family wasn't religious, so there was no sense in sending us to a Jewish day school. So I had lots of Gentile friends growing up and felt very comfortable about, going to their homes during Christmas and seeing their Christmas trees and all of that. And that was fine. My best girlfriend in high school was Catholic. Her dad was Lutheran, and I would go with her and her parents to church on Christmas Eve. Didn't really make any difference to me. By about the time I was in 8th grade, I had Christian friends who would try to share the gospel with me. And it didn't connect. First of all, we were in 8th grade. They weren't particularly well-versed in sharing their faith anyway. And I knew that I was Jewish and I didn't need to listen to them. So that was it. It wasn't until my senior year in high school that God started turning that around. There was a Christian Bible study that took place in our public high school before homeroom, which was a rather remarkable event. And those of us who weren't involved in that, we would hang out in the library, and whatever it was, 7:30 in the morning, they would go off to Bible study, and the rest of us would do homework or chat or whatever it is that we did back then. It was a long time ago. But one day in probably early December of 1975, two of my best girlfriends who were part of that Bible study invited me to come to Bible study with them because they were going to talk about whether or not the Jews were going to be saved. Now, that was all the bait I needed. I had been the captain of our school's debate team. We weren't good, but we were persistent. And I thought, this is the perfect opportunity. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to this Bible study. They're going to tell me that the Jews aren't going to be saved because they killed Christ, and they're going to prove it from this New Testament that they read that has, I'm sure, nothing good to say about Jewish people. And I'm never going to have to listen to this ever again. Done. Secure in my Judaism, secure in all of the cultural trappings, and completely finished with having to think about Christianity. And there I was, and the other students in the Bible study, I knew everybody in there. It was at least 20 students, and students from every grade in the school, and a teacher who was kind of the advisor moderator. And they started sharing exclusively from the Tanakh, from the Old Testament as they knew it, the promises about God's preserving the Jewish people, about how God was going to bring a redeemer, how that was always the plan. And they shared scriptures from the Torah. They shared prophecies from Isaiah and Zechariah and Micah, and especially, obviously Isaiah 53. And it sounded like Jesus. I was around enough Gentiles for all that time, all my life, to know that it sounded like Jesus. And so there was only one logical conclusion that I could draw. Their translation obviously messed it up, because if I read out of my Bible that I got from Hebrew school, it wouldn't sound that way. It wouldn't say those things. It wouldn't sound like Jesus. So it drove me, that one Bible study drove me to go home and start actually reading the Bible that they had given me in Hebrew school. We had never really read it. I don't think I had gotten past Genesis chapter 8 in a whole year of studying the Bible. And I started trying to find those scriptures that they had shared. Now, this comes as no surprise to you all, but it was a huge shock to me that, well, the words weren't exactly the same. I didn't know what I know now about Bible translations, but it still sounded like Jesus. And so I kept reading, and it wasn't until I got to Isaiah chapter 9 that the light bulb kind of went on for me. The verse numbers are not exactly the same in the Jewish version of the scriptures as they are for our common Bible versions, but where it says, "A child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, the government will rest upon his shoulders, and his name will be called." And then in my Bible it said, "Pele Yoetz El Gibor Aviad Sar Shalom." And of the government and peace, there will be no end. It did not translate the name. It just transliterated the Hebrew words. But in tiny print at the bottom of the page was the translation. "Wonderful in counsel is the Lord Almighty, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." I read that. And I remember what I had been taught in Sunday school, probably in first or second grade, that names in the Bible aren't just, "Oh, that sounds nice. Isn't that a pretty sounding word? We'll call our child that." When names are given in the scriptures, they're meant to indicate the character of the individual or to say something prophetically about God. I remembered that. And I thought, here my own scriptures don't want me to understand that a child is going to be born who will be both the everlasting Father, obviously God, and the Prince of Peace, which I knew was a term for Messiah. And I had to wrestle with that because I understood the implications of what those words said. If I believed that Isaiah was prophesying truly, then he was telling me all these centuries later that Jesus really was my Messiah. And I had to believe that. At the same time, here I was, a 17-year-old, not quite 18-year-old person. And I was afraid that if I embraced this faith, I would lose everything. I was on the cusp of graduating high school and planned on going to college. And I was afraid that I could lose my family, that they would disown me, that they would kick me out, that all of my plans for my future actually hung in the balance. But after about 3 days of wrestling with this, and I went back to school. Well, actually, that was not long before winter break. Came back in January, went to that Bible study. I had to absorb it, and realized early in January that year that I really believed this. It wasn't like there was a moment where I had knelt in prayer and asked the Lord to come into my heart. I just knew that I believed it, and it was true and it was real. And my high school friends understood the metaphor that we read in Romans 9, 10, and 11 about the Jewish olive tree. And they understood that I belonged as part of the body of Messiah, and that they were grafted in and they didn't counsel. Excuse me, I am going to turn off my phone. That is just, I don't know if you can hear it, but it's annoying me. They did not expect me to convert. They knew that I remained a Jewish person, that faith was meant for Jewish people and the rest of the world. So what Henry Goulet says about it having a Jewish particularism with a universal horizon, that's exactly what they understood without being able to use exactly those words. And I felt totally validated in my Jewish culture, but also knowing that I had found the one who was promised. Now, I did not have the confidence, the guts to tell my mother right away. That was a scary thing. God orchestrated that part of it as well. And it did not go smoothly, but he made sure that she knew that I believed that Jesus was the Messiah. I still at that point did not know that his Hebrew name was Yeshua. But that came by the time I got to college. And early on in my freshman year, I was introduced to Beth Messiah. It was a home fellowship group. It didn't look anything like it does now. But once I got to Beth Messiah, I knew I was home. This was where I needed to be. I had tried going to churches with friends and different denominations, Assemblies of God, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran. Nothing made sense because I felt like an outsider. They didn't understand me, and I certainly didn't have the background to understand them. But finding Beth Messiah gave me a place where I could be authentic. And I am incredibly grateful for that group of friends, and they're still friends today, who had the forethought to share the gospel in a way that was not antagonistic and that was truly infused with the Jewishness of the gospel. And so I just want to encourage you, because I've always felt that TJC2 has the right perspective. I know Marty Waldman. I remember when he first floated the idea of creating a second Jerusalem council to revisit the whole issue that had been sort of turned on its ear over the centuries, so that now we are looking at, well, what do we do with these Jewish people who are coming to faith, instead of the original question of what do we do with these Gentiles who are coming to faith? The irony is not lost on me. And right now in my journey, as I've said, I've been essentially at Beth Messiah since 1977. Beth Messiah has grown in its Jewish expression. We did not start out that way. Messianic Judaism in the early days was often very non-denominational Christianity with a kippah, if you understand what I'm saying. A few outward symbols, we lit Shabbat candles, we had Kiddush, but it still wasn't like being in the synagogue. Now it's much more like that. So we've grown over the years, and I think that's what Marty Waldman was looking for, is how do we express this again? How do we give this new life? Because this is part of living Israel's future. Today, it's about bringing the Gentile members of the body back into their role of provoking Israel to jealousy. That's what my high school friends did. They provoked me to jealousy. They didn't provoke me to anger. They made me want what I should have had all along. And I just am grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the opportunity that I'm now in seminary studying the biblical languages, but also, we don't just study that. I've studied theology. I'm studying all kinds of practical things and learning how to understand the message from a variety of different perspectives so that I can be more effective in what I do in terms of proclaiming the message to Jewish people and to others. So that's my story in a nutshell. I can expand on anything that you want. I don't see any questions yet, but
I can go ahead and help, facilitate. That was amazing. Thank you so much for that testimony. That just stirs me, I know, again, to really just believe in what God's doing over the Jewish people, and just the wonder and the miracle of that is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. And if you guys do have any questions, feel free to unmic yourself and ask. I might just kick it off with a question. And if you guys want to, unmute and ask, you're welcome to, or throw it in the chat as well. I do have a lot of questions actually in my brain already, but I'll try to winnow it down. But you were talking about, it was interesting to me to hear you say that non-religious Jews want their kids sometimes to have a strong Jewish identity. So I guess as kind of a Gentile believer, I'm curious to understand what that means to a non-Jewish family to want to keep their Jewish identity, but be non-religious.
Well, it really isn't all that different from what we see outside of Judaism. You have people who are ethnically Irish or African American, and those identities are important, but it doesn't necessarily inform worship at all. So you can be Irish and Catholic and still not go to Mass. You can. So the ethnicity is, unfortunately, in our culture, severable from the religious expression. That was not the way culture was. It wasn't the way the Bible thinks about it. The Bible portrays us as being holistic. So our ethnic identity informs our community relationships, informs our religious expression, our observance, our faith in God. And we live in a much more compartmentalized world.
Yeah. I guess that made sense in terms of, like, for example, I'm Chinese. I understand like the idea of wanting to keep the Chinese culture. I guess that was just confusing a little bit to me, because it was like, but the Chinese culture wasn't birthed and wrapped around and expressed by a relationship with Yahweh to begin with. So I guess like, I guess the thought was, I guess, like, for example, non-religious Jewish people, if they want to eat kosher or whatnot, what's their reasoning for that if it isn't, seated in faith?
That's a good question. And I would say that, my experience is not, complete, but from the people that I know, those who keep kosher are the ones who tend to be observant Jews.
Okay.
Those of us who are not observant may or may not, but even some Jewish people I know who are very active in their synagogues may not keep kosher the way the Orthodox Jews prescribe it. So, for example, I have a friend, a longtime friend, goes back to college days. She was raised in she's from a Reformed Jewish background. Family was very involved in synagogue. She and her husband are very involved in their synagogue. But her understanding of what the dietary rules are, we can eat the shellfish because that's rich people food. That's my interpretation. But we don't eat pork. Oh no, we don't eat pork. So the fact that she can make that disconnect, one kind of unclean food is okay, the other kind is not. Just to me, it's an all or nothing. If you're going to follow rabbinic tradition, you have to follow it the whole way. But these are the kinds of critical decisions that I think we all address as being part of this 21st century American culture. And I don't think it's particular to the Jewish world. I think we all, as Americans, we used to try to blend in and get along with each other. And I still hold out hope for that. But there has to be some give and take so that we can accommodate living easily with each other. I still live out of sync with the world because Shabbat for me begins at sundown on Friday and ends at sundown on Saturday. And the rest of the world does not do that.
That's interesting. Thank you for asking that. That's really interesting. Yeah. And I had another question too, but I wanted to open it up to anybody else if they had a thought or a comment or a question. I see Travis on here, and I believe if you guys had any questions or comments, feel free to unmute and ask.
I have a quick question for Marcy. Marcy, it's good to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Travis. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear your story. And I'm on a Hebrew class, informal class with Dr. Meyer with Marcy. So we're struggling together. No, enjoying the Hebrew study greatly together in that little group. But this was just an amazing story. I just love the way you express it. You really make it, you bring your life out, and also a lot of good teaching. Like I know what Priscilla's talking about, it really informs all of us, I think, with our posture towards that the way. So my question was like the way that Bible study with the student advisor or the students, like how did they have such a wise approach to relating to you? Was it the advisor, and how do you think the church is doing with that now, or how can we what's the key there? That was a sensitive heart. Was it just the wisdom on knowing how to present the scriptures to you? What made the difference there?
Well, those are really great questions, Travis, and thank you for asking. I still to this day don't know what informed that group to present the message the way they did. To my recollection, I think there was only one other Jewish student that they invited that day. And I don't think it actually had the same impact on her. So I think they were just sincere in their faith. They read the scriptures clearly. They saw that the message was for Jewish people, and I wasn't the most popular kid in the school, let's put it this way, but I think I was one of those people who, by virtue of the fact that I was involved in lots of activities and usually at the top of my class, lots of people knew me. It was a pretty big high school, but my friends loved me. That's just the bottom line. My friends loved me enough to share the message. And I'm trying to remember what was how do we incorporate this? I think the best takeaway is that when we're sharing the message with Jewish people especially, not that evangelism of other groups isn't important, it absolutely is, it's all of our jobs, but it is essential for the conclusion of God's plan to bring Israel back to her Messiah. So we have an important challenge in front of us. And if we present the message in a way that sounds like a person has to leave his or her Judaism in order to embrace this new truth, it's not truth. If it's not good news for Israel, it isn't good news. And so our presentation has to be sensitive to not putting up on unnecessary barriers. One of the things that we do at Beth Messiah, and this is true actually in almost every Messianic community I've ever visited, we use terminology that isn't Gentile. So we call him Yeshua. We call him the Messiah or Mashiach, because those are the Hebrew words. Yeshua means salvation. That's why when we read in the Gospel of Luke, I think it's Luke, where Gabriel comes to Miriam, his mother, it was Miriam, and says, you'll name him Yeshua because he will save his people from their sins. When you say, we'll name him Jesus because he will save his people from their sins, there's a disconnect there. Jesus doesn't mean anything to us other than that's his name. Yeshua means something. Mashiach is from the word meaning to anoint. He's the anointed one. And when we get to the Greek, Christos, it's just really taking that idea of anointed one. So Greek is borrowing from the Hebrew when it comes up with that term. So understanding that, we don't use the symbol of the cross in our synagogue. I don't wear a cross. I wouldn't, because for centuries, the cross has been a symbol of Jewish persecution. Not that these people weren't well-meaning. I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. They stand before their judge. I'm not that judge. But so many Jewish people were persecuted and killed because they would not receive a foreign God. And that's the way Jesus is often presented or was presented. What can we do now? Well, TJCll is part of the solution, I think, more spreading the message of the fact that this is a Jewish faith that it's not just the roots are Jewish, the roots are underground and invisible. No, the tree is Jewish. The faith is Jewish. And by embracing Jesus as your deliverer, you are joining yourself in with Israel. And that's just having that mindset, I think, changes the calculus completely.
Great,
I
thank you.
hope that answered your question, Travis. Might have raised a few more.
Yeah. That was great. Yeah. Thank you.
Marcy, what would you say would be a practical beginning point for the Gentile ecclesia to begin to move into provoking our Jewish brothers and sisters? What would be maybe one or two practical changes we could make in our approach when we do encounter a Jewish person, and maybe some of our terminology? What are some practical things there?
Great question, Janice. Not surprised either. Janice has been the poster child of really trying to embrace a set of terminology and a way of life that is welcoming to Jewish people. So I appreciate that. Practically speaking, we're called to be prepared to have an answer in season and out of season. So knowing that his name is Yeshua, not referring to Jesus Christ, which sounds like a foreign god to most of us Jewish people, that helps. But practically, know what's coming up on the Jewish calendar. Be familiar with the Jewish holiday cycle, so that you encounter somebody on a Friday afternoon, wish them Shabbat Shalom. And then they're going to look at you and think, are you Jewish? How do you know? Even if they don't observe Shabbat, they will know what that means, and that gets the wheels turning. It will cause them to ask the question. Know what's coming up on the holiday cycle. It's almost Passover. Ask that person if they're having, a Passover Seder in their home. What is it like for you? What do you look forward to? Know about the holidays. There are some great materials out there that you can study from, not the least being my MSI class on the Jewish holidays that is offered periodically. But there are great books out there written from the Messianic Jewish perspective that will explain not only the Jewishness of the holiday, but also where it fits into the gospel message. So just being familiar with those kinds of things helps. There's no reason why you can't be part of the activities at the Jewish Community Center. Know about when they're having book fairs or special guest speakers or concerts. Go and participate. I know Janice has been one of the people at Beth Messiah who has done that quite a bit, and others have as well. Be visible and don't feel like you have to be apologetic or for not being Jewish. The Jewish community is generally, in most places, fairly welcoming of Gentiles. You're not as threatening as I would be. As a Jewish believer, I might be viewed with more suspicion because there's often an expectation that I have left my faith. I'm a traitor of some sort. More religious Jews would feel more strongly about that. More Jews who are less religious or more on the reform or reconstructive end of the spectrum might just think I'm a little crazy, but maybe benign. but just be aware, be involved, ask questions. Ask questions about the holidays, ask questions about the synagogue service, ask if you can go along with them. Those are the kinds of things that we do without question when we're trying to reach any group of people. We want to understand their culture. We want to be sensitive to what their understandings are and be able to speak into that.
That's great. Thank you for that answer. That's wonderful. So we're trying to close here at 12 noon. So what I'm going to do is I will be breaking us off into small groups to pray for the gospel to run forth in Jewish communities. And so when we go into our small groups, I'd like us to just do two things. One, if you have a comment, something that stood out from Marcy's teaching, any thought or anything like that, just go ahead and share that. And then two, we're going to take some time to close and pray for Jewish believers. And yeah, so thank you, Marcy. Thank you so much for sharing. And I do hope, you get another chance to come and join us and share a little bit more about your experience. I feel like there's so much more to draw from what you've shared to go deeper, and I'd love to hear more.
I would be pleased to do that.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Thank you so much, Marcy.
Yeah, let me take a moment to go out into breakout rooms here, and it'll just be randomly assigned. Okay. All right, here we go. And again, the sharing something that from the teaching that stood out to you, and then praying for the Jewish people. All right, here we go. Let's go into our rooms.